EduBridge IS. Today, this is an open session on Ramsar Convention. So you must have heard about various sites that are being added in October and November 2020 under this Ramsar Convention, or they are declared as Ramsar sites. So what exactly is Ramsar Convention? Today we'll be discussing about it. Fine. So by the end of this session, you should be able to learn, or you should understand, what is Ramsar Convention, then what are wetlands, what is the importance of wetlands, why we should conserve wetlands, what kind of services do they provide us. Also, you should get the understanding regarding what are the partner organizations for the implementation of Ramsar Convention. Right, there are 5 partner organizations which are international NGOs. They help to implement Ramsar Convention on ground. And lastly, you should be able to understand what are Indian sites that are there, which are included as Ramsar sites. Fine. So towards the end of this session, you should be able to understand these 4 things. Fine. So let us begin with Ramsar Convention. So what is Ramsar Convention? It is also known as a convention on wetlands, which was signed in 1971 by UNESCO. So this convention is also known as Convention on Wetlands, and it was signed in 1971, and it is considered as one of the oldest convention for the protection of biodiversity and the habitat. Fine. So it is one of the oldest convention for the protection of biodiversity, signed in 1971 by UNESCO. Fine. Though it was signed in 1971, it came into force since 1975. That means the ratification happened, or ratification by member countries was delayed, and that's why it could not come into force after 1971, and that's why it is in force since 1975. Fine. So Ramsar is one of the cities in Iran. Ramsar is a city in Iran, and this convention was signed in that particular city. That's why it is called as Ramsar Convention. Fine. So Ramsar is a name of city in Iran. Fine. So what is exactly the objective of Ramsar Convention? Ramsar Convention is for the conservation and wise use of wetlands. It is for conservation and wise use of wetlands. Conservation means we should use wetlands in such a way that, or we should take care of wetlands in such a way that those wetlands remain sustainable, or the resources that are there in the wetlands are used in a sustainable manner. Fine. And wise use. What is wise use of wetlands? Wise use of wetlands means, see, this convention is not saying that you should not use wetlands or resources of wetlands. Yes, we should use those resources and those wetlands, but that use by human beings should be a wise use. And wise use means a use which do not lead to alteration of ecological characteristic of that particular wetland. Fine. Suppose there is a lake. Lake is a wetland, right? So if we are using that lake for various purposes, then we should make sure that that lake's ecological characteristics should not change. If that lake is a lake of grasslands, then that lake of grassland should be maintained. We should not try to replace those grasses with something else, right? So that is wise use of wetlands, where ecological characteristic of I'm sorry for this technical problem. Let me share slides again. Fine. So, okay, coming back to our discussion. So it is Ramsar Convention is for the conservation and wise use. But how we can ensure wise use of wetlands? It can be only ensured through the actions taken by the regional and national governments, right? It cannot be the actions by the international organization. Yes, they can help us, these governments or the local bodies, for the implementation of Ramsar Convention. But as per the treaty or as per the Ramsar Convention itself, the actions should be of national government as well as of local bodies. Fine. So actions are of national governments and local bodies, but the international organizations, which we will study in few minutes, the international organizations will help in cooperation for those governments and local bodies in the implementation of Ramsar Convention. Fine. So, what is the objective of Ramsar Convention? It is conservation and wise use of wetlands through local and national actions and international cooperation as a contribution towards achieving sustainable development throughout the world. So, with this conservation efforts, with these wise use of products of wetlands, we will be able to ensure the sustainable development throughout the world. Fine. So this is the objective of Ramsar Convention. Next point. So as we have discussed, it is an intergovernmental treaty. Fine. So there are a number of national governments that have come together and they have signed this particular treaty. So it is an intergovernmental treaty for the conservation and wise use of wetlands. How many countries are there? There are more than 170 countries which are party to Ramsar Convention. More than 170 countries are a party to Ramsar Convention. And throughout the world, there are more than 2,400 Ramsar sites. More than 2,400 Ramsar sites are there. Fine. Next. So these objectives of Ramsar Convention are achieved through one of the very important policy making body under Ramsar Convention. That body is called as Conference of Parties. Conference of Contracting Parties. That means these are 170 member countries, and representatives of those member countries meet every after 3 years to decide where this particular convention is going, what needs to be changed so that we can help wetlands to be conserved, and how we can ensure wise use of wetlands. That is ensured every after 3 years through Conference of Contracting Parties. This term is very important. COPs, because you must have heard about COP of CBD, that means Convention on Biological Diversity. You must have heard about COPs of UNFCCC, that means United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. All these COPs are different COPs. You should remember this point. Every convention, every international convention has its own conference of party. So do not get confused. Okay, yesterday I have read about COP 22 and now he is saying about COP 14. But COP 22 was of UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This particular COP 14 is of Ramsar Convention. That is the difference. Fine. So the goals of Ramsar Convention are achieved through national and international collaborations, and COP is the body which will ensure that Ramsar Convention is updated as per the need of time. Fine. Last COP was held in 2018 and it was held in Dubai. And COP 14 will be held in 2021 and it will be held in the very famous city of China, that is Wuhan. Fine. So it will be in Wuhan. Next, so this is just an introduction of Ramsar Convention. Now let us understand what exactly are wetlands. Fine. So wetlands are the ecosystem. They are the habitat for certain species of animals as well as plants, where water is the primary factor which controls the environment and also the components of that particular environment. Fine. So water is the prime factor which will control the environment of wetlands. And if water is the prime factor which is controlling the environment of wetlands, obviously the components of environment. What are the components of environment? Components are of environment are biotic and abiotic factors, right? So biotic factors will also be influenced by the water, which is an abiotic component of the wetland ecosystem, right? So wetlands are the areas where water is the primary factor which will control the environment and its components, fine. But the Ramsar Convention has given extremely wide definition of wetlands. So as per Ramsar Convention, wetlands include, so I'm reading this second point, wetlands include all underground aquifers, swamps and marshes. Swamps are the area of land which are permanently filled by water. Marshes, on the other hand, is the wetland ecosystem where water covers the ground, and that particular ground is dominated by grass, and often trees are absent from marshes. Right? So swamps is the area where almost every time marshes are different from swamps because in marshes you will not see trees. Marshes are dominated by grasses. Right? Next, wet grasslands, peatlands. What are peatlands? Peatlands are terrestrial wetland ecosystem in which waterlogged conditions prevent complete decomposition of organic matter. So in peatlands, you will find partially decomposed organic matter. Fine. Next, oases. Oases are the fertile area in the desert ecosystem. We all know oases. Next, estuaries. Estuaries are the region where a river meets ocean or sea, right? So estuaries, then deltas. Deltas are the most fertile area on the coastal regions. Next, tidal flats. Tidal flats are the location or are the wetlands near coastal area where water gushes in and gushes out from tides. Mangroves, we all know Sundarbans, and coastal areas like coral reefs or coastal areas, coral reefs. Coral reefs, do you know coral reefs? Coral reefs is a symbiotic association between zooxanthellae algae and coral polyps, right? It is the combination of polyps, which are animals, and zooxanthellae algae, that is a plant species. Fine, we will discuss all these things in detail once we start our regular batch. But right now, just remember that coral reef is a symbiotic association between coral polyps and zooxanthellae algae. We will discuss all these things. Fine. So these are the wetlands that are included in Ramsar Convention's definition of wetlands. But apart from this, Ramsar Convention also includes human-made sites like fish ponds, like rice paddy fields, reservoirs, that means dam, and also salt pans. So all these human-made sites or man-made sites are also considered as wetlands under Ramsar Convention. Fine. So I hope this picture with respect to wetlands and definition of wetlands is clear. Fine. So all these habitats, all these ecosystems are being conserved. Our effort is to conserve these kind of ecosystems under Ramsar Convention. Fine. Next point. So why we need to conserve these wetlands? What is the need? No one will go to coral reefs, or hardly anyone go to coral reefs. So it does not have much significance to us. Then why to conserve those kind of coral reefs? But that is not correct, because wetlands are the most productive ecosystem, and they are the most diverse ecosystem, which provide human beings lots of ecosystem services. There are many ecosystem services that are being provided by wetlands. Fine. So ecosystem services are of four kinds: provisioning services, regulating services, cultural services, and supporting services. Fine. Out of these four ecosystem services, most of the services are provided by wetlands. Fine. So we will discuss in detail what ecosystem services are and these four kinds of ecosystem services during our course of lecture. But here, let us discuss what kind of ecosystem services are provided by wetlands. We get food, water, fiber from wetlands. Provisioning of food, water, fiber. Next, groundwater recharge. See, whenever floods occur, the excess water from flood is accumulated in nearby lakes, and from those lakes water percolates down, and this will lead to recharging of groundwater. So that is the service provided by wetlands. Next, water purification. Water purification, natural purification occur in lakes because of presence of various species of microorganism. That is also a service that we get from wetlands. Next, flood moderation. As I have discussed in the earlier point, whenever excess water is there, that excess water can be stored in the lake nearby. So we can make sure that flood moderation happens. And that is the service again that we get from wetlands. Also, soil erosion control. So if there are wetlands, they will help you to restrict the speed of flowing water. And if you are restricting or you are reducing the speed of flowing water, then obviously soil erosion can be controlled. And finally, most important service that we get from wetlands is climate regulation. So wetlands have the impact on climates of the nearby region. The city of lakes, Bangalore. Why people consider climate of Bangalore so pleasant? Because the climate of Bangalore is regulated by wetlands. That means lakes which are there in and around that city. But these days, you must have seen the conversation. Oh, Bangalore is also becoming hot these days. Why? Because we are encroaching and we are destructing those wetlands. Fine. So these are the services that we get from wetlands. Next, apart from this, as I have discussed, wetlands is a very diverse habitat for different species of animals. Right? They give habitat to birds. Fine. Next. So these are the services that we get from wetlands. But what has happened in recent past? The wetlands as an ecosystem are under threat. Why? Because there are number of actions which you can say are anthropogenic actions which are leading to destruction of these wetlands. What are the threats that are there for wetlands? They are in the form of conversion. That means the land use change is being carried out by human beings. For example, the encroachment of land in the lakes, that land is filled with foreign material. That lake is filled with foreign material, and there you will you will construct high-rise buildings, and you will put a large billboard saying Lake View Building. So those kind of things have happened, and because of that, it is the habitat destruction of wetlands. Apart from that, pollution. See, where we put our sewage water, ultimate, we let them go into rivers or nearby lakes, and that has again led to algal blooms. Eutrophication of lakes or rivers has happened, and that has led to change in the characteristic of that lake or a river. So pollution is also one of the important problems that is there, because of which wetlands are getting hampered, right? Next is over exploitation of their resources. See, we should use wetlands in a wise manner, but what has happened, because of increasing population or because of increasing commercial aspects, we are exploiting the resources that we get from uh, wetlands, and that is leading to habitat destruction again. And lastly, other human interferences, like interferences during tourism activities, pollution, or use and throw culture, which often led to pollution of lakes. All these activities are threatening wetlands, and that's why it is very important to conserve them. And that is the goal of Ramsar Convention. Fine. So, how Ramsar Convention seeks to protect wetlands. So we have discussed importance, we have discussed the definition of wetlands, we have discussed what kind of services we get from wetlands, we have discussed the threats that are there for wetlands. And now, based upon those threats, let us discuss how Ramsar Convention seeks to conserve wetlands. So it seeks to protect wetlands with the help of its three pillars. So Ramsar Convention tries to conserve wetlands based upon three pillars of this convention, under which the contracting parties commit to first work towards the wise use of all their wetlands. So we have discussed, there are more than 170 parties to this convention. So those parties will make sure that they the use of wetlands in their particular jurisdiction is a wise use. Fine. So wise use is very important word under Ramsar Convention. And this word was picked up by UPSC, and they have asked question in 2018's mains that, or sorry, 2019's mains, what is wise use of wetlands? Discuss any two Ramsar sites in India. That was the question. Fine. So wise use of wetlands is to be ensured, and that is one of the pillars under Ramsar Convention. Second, designate suitable wetlands for the list of wetlands of international importance, that is Ramsar list, and ensure their effective management. So the contracting parties, they will have to come up with their Ramsar list, and that list is a list of wetlands which are considered as wetlands of international importance, and the parties will have to make sure that the effective management of those wetlands is carried out. Fine. And lastly, cooperate internationally on transboundary wetlands, shared wetland systems, and shared species. So there can be certain wetlands which are considered as a transboundary. For example, Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls is a transboundary wetland, you can say. Fine. So there has to be cooperation between Canada and the USA to manage or to conserve Niagara Falls. Right? So these are the three pillars on which Ramsar Convention works to conserve wetlands. Wise use of wetlands, give the list of wetlands of international importance, and cooperate internationally for transboundary wetlands and their resources. These are the three pillars based upon which Ramsar Convention tries to protect wetlands. Next. Next is, what are Ramsar sites and under which criteria they are selected. So what are Ramsar sites? We have discussed under point number 2 that each country will have to come up with the list called as Ramsar list, which is a list of wetlands of international importance. So what are those, what is that Ramsar site, and what is the criteria based upon which we can select wetlands of international importance? Fine. So Ramsar site is nothing but a list of wetlands of international importance. And what is the criteria? Criteria, there are 9 criteria that we have to discuss. But before that, let us read point number 2. For Ramsar sites, the governments commit to take steps necessary to maintain ecological characteristic of the site. So if a particular wetland is put under Ramsar list, then the government of that particular country will have to make sure that the ecological characteristic of that wetland is maintained. And that is nothing but, can you please tell me, a wise use of wetland. When we are ensuring that ecological characteristic of this particular wetland is being maintained by the government, that is the wise use of wetlands. Fine. Next, so what are the criteria? So there are total 9 criteria based upon which we can select a particular site and we can put it in a Ramsar list. Fine. So out of these 9 criteria, any one criteria, if a particular site is fulfilling, that site can become a Ramsar, a wetland under Ramsar list. Fine. So let us discuss those 9 criteria. There are few groups under which these 9 criteria are divided. So let us discuss first group. Group A of the criteria: site containing a representative, a rare, or unique type of wetland. Fine. So what is the first group? That particular wetland should be representative, rare, and unique characteristic it should exhibit. Fine. Under this group, the criteria is a wetland should be considered internationally important if it contains a representative, a rare, or unique example of natural or near natural wetland type. Natural or near natural. What is near natural? Near natural is nothing but human made or man-made site. Fine. Dam, for example, dam, though it is man-made, it is filled with water, and that's why it can have certain characteristics which are near natural characteristics. Fine. So under this particular criteria, even man-made sites can be recognized as a wetland under Ramsar site. Fine. Next. So this is first criteria. Next is group B of the criteria, where sites of international importance for conserving biological diversity and criteria based on species and ecological communities. So what kind of species does a particular wetland give habitat to is the criteria under group B. And the specific criteria under those that group are: first, criteria 2, if it supports vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered species or threatened ecological communities, then we can say this site qualifies to be a Ramsar site. Fine. Suppose a particular wetland is there, and if it is an habitat for vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered species of animals or plants, then that particular site can be declared as a Ramsar site. Fine. So what are vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered species? These are the different categories given by IUCN, the International Union on Conservation of Natural Resources. We will discuss about these criteria, these categories under IUCN's red list in detail during our course of lecture. Fine. Second criteria under this group B is if it supports population of plant and or animal species important for maintaining the biological diversity of a particular biogeographic region. So again, if there is a particular keystone species, and that keystone species is being given habitat by that particular wetland, then again that wetland can be uh, included in the Ramsar list. Right. So a keystone species is the important word. Next now. Next criteria under group B is if it supports plant and or animal species at a critical stage in their life cycles or provides refuge during adverse conditions. For example, if a particular wetland is acting as a habitat for water birds during their reproductive cycle, then that wetland can be included as a site under Ramsar site. Or if suppose a natural habitat of a particular water bird or fish population has been destructed with the kind of destruction that has happened in Uttarakhand recently. So if the species of fishes from that particular habitat has migrated and they are now living in different habitat or different wetland, then that different wetland is giving refuge to those species during difficult times, and that's why it can become a wetland under Ramsar list. Fine. So this is group B. Now next, group C, or specific criteria based on water birds. See, we all know that wetlands are very important habitat for water birds. So there is a specific criteria for a particular wetland to be qualify as a Ramsar site based upon water birds. Fine. So that criteria is if it regularly supports 20,000 or more wetlands. Oh, sorry, more 20,000 or more water birds. Suppose in a site A, there are 20,000 or more water birds which are permanently living there, then that site A will qualify as a Ramsar site. Next is criteria number 6 under same water bird specific criteria group only. So it says that if it regularly supports 1% of the individuals in a population of one species or subspecies of water birds. So again, suppose there are 100 water birds of a particular species, and out of those 100 water birds, 1%, that means one water bird is living in a particular wetland, then that wetland can qualify to be included as a Ramsar site. Fine. Next is specific criteria based on fish. So after water birds, you can say fishes are the important species which get their habitat from water, which get their habitat from wetlands. So what is the criteria for fishes? So it is if it supports a significant proportion of indigenous fish subspecies, species, or families, life history stages, species interaction. So if there is a significant proportion of subspecies of any fish or a species of fish and families of fishes, if they are living in that particular wetland, then that wetland qualifies to be a wetland under Ramsar site. Fine. Next is criteria number 8 under fishes only. If it is an important source of food for fishes, spawning ground, nursery, and or migration path on which fish stocks either within the wetland or elsewhere depend. So if that habitat of if that wetland is used as a source of food material, if it is used as a spawning ground or as a nursery or as a migratory route by fishes, then again that wetland can be included as Ramsar site. And last criteria based upon other taxa. That means based upon the species which are neither water birds or which are neither nor fishes. So if a particular wetland supports 1% of the individual in a population of one species or subspecies of wetland dependent non-avian animal species, that means which are not birds, right? So if there is a wetland which is giving habitat to 1% of those individuals from a particular species, then again that wetland can become a Ramsar site. Fine. So these are 9 criteria that are there under Ramsar Convention. And a particular wetland should satisfy at least one criteria. If it is satisfying any of these criteria, then it can be included in Ramsar list. That means it can become a wetland of international importance. Fine. I hope it is clear. See, you don't need to remember all the criteria. You just have to have the clarity. Okay, what are the criteria based upon which Ramsar site is chosen? Fine. So specific words that are mentioned in the criteria, you need not remember them, but at least broader idea you should have. Next. So partner organizations for Ramsar Convention. See, we have discussed that it is an intergovernmental treaty, or we have discussed that it is an international convention where decisions are taken by member parties. But how to implement those decisions? Those decisions on the ground can be implemented through various NGOs, which are referred to as International Organization Partners of the Ramsar Convention, IOPs of the Ramsar Convention. Fine. So there are 5 global non-governmental organizations which are considered as IOPs, that is International Organization Partners of the Conventions. Which are those 5 IOPs? First is BirdLife International. Second is the International Water Management Institute. Next is Wetlands International. Wetlands International, they have asked question in prelim 19. Next is Worldwide Fund for Nature. WWF, Worldwide Fund for Nature. And the last but not the least, the IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. IUCN is one of the international organization partners of Ramsar Convention. Fine. So all these 5 IOPs are extremely important from exam's point of view. We will discuss these IOPs during our course of discussion. Next. Fine. Next. Now, Ramsar sites and India. Ramsar Convention and India. How many Ramsar sites are there in India? Which are the latest Ramsar sites that are included under Ramsar Convention from India? Let us discuss. So there are more than 7 lakh wetlands in India, which constitute approximately 4.5% of India's land. Fine. So there are more than 7 lakh wetlands in India. But out of those 7 lakhs, only 42 wetlands are included under Ramsar list. That means only 42 wetlands out of 7 lakh wetlands are considered as wetlands of international importance. Fine. And the latest site which was added in late last year in the Ramsar list is Startsapuk, So and Sokar lakes from Ladakh. So these are the latest addition to the Ramsar list from India. Startsapuk, So and Sokar in Ladakh. And that's why we are discussing this particular topic. Fine. Next, what are other recent additions? So, the month of October, in the month of October we have seen few other additions in the Ramsar list. Which are they? First is Lonar Lake in Maharashtra. Next, second is Sur Sarovar, which is also known as Ketham Lake, which is there in UP. Next is Karbartal Lake in Bihar. And this is the first site from Bihar. Karbartal Lake, first site from Bihar. Next, the Asan Conservation Reserve, which is in Uttarakhand. Fine. So these four and the first one that we have discussed, total 5 Ramsar sites are the recent addition to the Ramsar list from India. Fine. What are other important wetlands? Other important wetlands we all know are like Chilka Lake, which is in Odisha. Next is Kevladev National Park, which is there in Rajasthan. Next is Harike Lake in Punjab. Why Harike Lake I have highlighted here? Because it is a man-made site and it is included as a Ramsar site from India. Fine. So it is a man-made site. Next is Loktak Lake, which is there in Manipur, very famous lake, Loktak Lake, and Wular Lake, again a famous lake from Jammu and Kashmir. Fine. So these are the sites from India. Let me tell you one very important point regarding Chilka Lake. So we have discussed about wise use of wetlands, which is one of the important pillars under which or based upon which Ramsar Convention makes sure that the wetlands are conserved, wise use of wetlands. But what if the wise use of wetlands is not maintained and the ecological characteristic of a wetland is altered? Then under Ramsar Convention, there is one record which is called as Montrex record. Montrex record. Montrex record is the record of wetlands whose ecological characteristic has been altered because of human interventions or pollution or technological changes. And till recent time, till 2002, Chilka Lake was the lake or was the wetland was there in its record, but there now. Earlier it was there under Montrex record, but it has been removed from Montrex record because of the establishment of Chilka Lake Management Authority, which has ensured that the ecological characteristic of Chilka Lake is restored. Fine. So these are the sites, famous sites from India, and that's all from my side. So from tomorrow we'll be starting our regular sessions from 4 to 6, where we will discuss in detail about various aspects of environment and ecology. So we'll be dividing this subject into 6 important parts. Firstly, we'll discuss about environmental ecology. That means basics of ecology. What is ecology, what is environment, what is ecosystem, what are biomes. Secondly, we will discuss about biodiversity. Next, we will discuss about climate change. Then we will discuss about pollution. And towards end, 5th topic will be EIA, Environment Impact Assessment. And lastly, we will discuss legal framework or laws which are there for the conservation of environment altogether. Fine. So that's it from my side. Thank you.